Welcome to True-10 CrimeCast. This episode, we are veering off course with a story not from the 210, but from the 214 area code. A little ways drive from San Antonio to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we were initially introduced to Robin Johnson through attending a crime victims and family support conference here in San Antonio. Robin travels across the state of Texas, sharing her nephew's case in hopes of bringing attention and light to the story. True-10 CrimeCast is able to use the podcast platform and share with the world the many stories of so many innocent. Now we get the opportunity to share Armani Morgan's story. This is True-10 CrimeCast, Dallas edition. Listener discretion is advised. Armani Dante Morgan was born on December 19, 1989. Armani grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He was the only child, but had extended family, including his Aunt Robin and her own daughters, who Armani grew up with. It was a very close-knit family, and they shared many memories and happy moments. Here is Armani's Aunt Robin sharing what it was like helping to raise Armani in those memories that they created as a family.
For starters, Armani was an only child. He's my oldest sister's son and only child. By him being an only child and his biological father not being a part of his life, and that was by choice, he was against the fact that Armani identified as a gay man. Therefore, there was no relationship between the two. And my dad, before he passed away, was the only father figure in Armani's life. And by Armani being an only child and not getting the love that he really craved and desired from his own dad, he clinged to my father. He just loved love. He loved everybody, and he wanted everybody around him to be happy at all times. And he entered a space, and he could sense when he entered the room or a space, the energy wasn't right. But before he left that space or that room, whatever was going on with whoever wasn't having a good day, that frown turned upside down. He would leave a smile on everybody's face. That's just who he was. And he adapted that from my mother, his maternal grandmother, because my mother always wanted everybody in her space to be happy. My youngest daughter, who reported Armani missing, she and Armani had more of a brother-sister bond as opposed to first cousins. Armani's mom is my oldest sister. From the time Armani and my youngest daughter, were growing up together, I helped my sister to take care of Armani. He loved fashion, and he would always try to dress everybody. Fashion and music, and him learning how to cook, and he got good at all three. He lived with his mom up till, majority of the time by himself because she was always working. And then, too, by him being an only child, he never wanted to leave his mom. Now, mind you, him always wanting to be loved and accepted by the people around him, he didn't always associate himself with people that had his best interests at heart.
Armani was a proud and openly gay man. Armani lived with his mother, and his family knew who he was dating, including his latest relationship with the same-sex partner. Although his relationship was not ideal for his family, Armani continued this relationship for years. It wasn't an easy relationship at that, and Armani's so-called associates and individuals he hung out with were also not good influences. Armani may not have had a perfect background, but he knew right from wrong, and his family only wanted the best for him. Listen to his aunt describing this tumultuous relationship, including with his same-sex partner, and all leading up to the day he disappeared.
There were three different perpetrators, one female and two males. And one of the two males was Armani's same-sex partner. When Armani no longer wanted to be involved in an intimate same-sex relationship with his same-sex partner, he became increasingly violent with Armani in the weeks leading up to his sudden disappearance. The female perpetrator, she and Armani associated themselves with each other almost on a daily basis. And that common denominator between the two of them, what she was doing was soliciting Armani's help each month. And this went on for about 3 years, to sell a portion of her SNAP benefits that she would get on this EBT card. She knew that Armani knew a lot of people because he did. And she was using that to her advantage because she knew that he knew enough people to sell a portion of her food stamps every month in exchange for cash for them to use that money to buy drugs. When that thing went wrong, whatever went wrong with it is when she started to relentlessly pursue him. And she did this on 3 separate occasions. It was the week, I don't know exactly what day, but it was the week of May the 22nd, 2017. And then again, on May the 30th, she started making harassing phone calls to Armani and his mom's resident, trying to lure him outside. He wouldn't take the bait. So she did this 24/7 that day. So May the 31st, she did it again. Got up, immediately started making harassing phone calls at the crack of dawn and tried to lure him outside. But that didn't get it. So when Armani and his mom did venture outside that day, ironically, she was there on the scene to violently assault him right outside his front door. Some of the people that she knew recorded it with the cell phone. Brief cell phone footage ended up being posted via Facebook. And that's how I was able to get a copy of the brief cell phone footage where she was violently assaulting Armani right outside his front door. I provided that to Dallas Homicide, and nothing was ever done about it. They never, not once, brought her into the police station to question her. Each time they interviewed her, it was always out in the field. I don't know where they would catch up to her, but they never once, to this day, took her to police headquarters to question her. Not at all.
This relationship was volatile in every way possible. Armani struggled to deal with this abusive relationship. And if you are a true crime follower, you know how difficult it is for individuals to leave abusive relationships. No matter the sex, race, age, abusive partners make life a living hell. Even more dangerous when their victims try to leave. Armani was trying to do just that. He knew he deserved more and he deserved better. As his friendships and relationships began to dwindle and Armani attempted to escape from this type of living, the retaliation just increased. This led to the infamous day in June 2017 when Armani Morgan would last be seen at his apartment. This day, along with all the events after, have left nothing more than questions and concerns, not just from potential suspects, but from law enforcement and detectives, to which the family leaned on for answers.
My youngest daughter, who reported Armani missing, when she initially called to report him missing, dispatch suggested to her that she contact NamUs. And when she contacted NamUs, NamUs referred her back to DPD. So they ping-ponged her back and forth the same day, and neither one of them showed any interest in the fact that we're reporting, the family was reporting him missing. And so she began to look for him on her own, places and people that she knew where he frequented, or either somebody would see him eventually. And, none of that panned out.
Armani's family knew that he would not just up and leave without telling someone. He lived with his mother, and there was nothing missing from the home that would have suggested he was planning on leaving, even for a few days. And the repetitive theme of adults don't go missing with police, especially young adults, does and has impeded on beginning searches and often leads to wasting time to finding the truth. This is something we see over and over again in the true crime community. Dallas Police Department would eventually take his missing case seriously. Armani's family would not miss a second to advocate for his disappearance, spreading awareness online and sharing his photo and flyer with the public and not letting police dismiss his case. Armani's aunt Robin made sure that he would not be lost in the many missing and unsolved cases amongst Dallas PD. Although initial investigations led to Armani's accomplices and same-sex partner, nothing further was pushed. Others would be questioned, but again, nothing further would come out of these discussions. Armani's aunt Robin felt that the many that were questioned were too scared to speak the truth about Armani's ex-partner and the aggressive and dangerous behavior he displayed on many occasions. But police were unable to move on further with him due to the lack of evidence and anyone forthcoming on any possible role he may have had in Armani's missing case. It wouldn't take much longer for answers, as Armani's remains were found on July 24, 2017, by a resident of Wilbert Avenue. The resident had actually been leaving his home that day and noticed a dog with what looked like a skeleton in his mouth. This resident would go on to share that once he realized what it was in the dog's mouth, he could not just ignore it and call police. This would prompt Dallas PD and responding units to the scene, where further search of an empty property showed more skeletal remains.
It was actually 7 weeks later, it was a resident that lived on the street. In this particular street is a dead end cul-de-sac. And he was actually leaving his home. He's a good Samaritan, because had it not been for him discovering Armani's skull that day, we wouldn't have never known to this day where Armani's skeletal remains were. Now, mind you, at that point, we didn't have any idea that these were Armani's remains until after his mom had submitted her DNA buccal swab with the medical examiner's office. And the medical examiner, she couldn't even look at us with a straight face when she said it. She said, well, the fragmented skeletal remains that we did recover, she said they had no marks or striations to where we could definitively determine his cause and manner of death. But I don't believe that. His same-sex partner was very familiar with the area because he also lived in that same community. And the gentleman that was shot and killed in November 2019, he also lived in that same area, and he was very familiar. And I would call her an associate, because a friend wouldn't do you this way. They were all familiar, and our family has the belief that we knew these folks were people that knew him because of where he was dumped.
As we stated earlier, Robin and her family never stopped asking questions, putting Armani's name out there and telling the story of what happened to him. Since 2017, Dallas-Fort Worth Police Department have had little progress, and some say little determination in regards to solving or bringing new leads to this case. Armani's aunt has used social media, the news, podcast, any way to get his story out. She has continued to share his story in hopes of bringing awareness and conjuring new information. This includes working with nonprofit organizations, including her hopes of using DNA and forensic evidence. His Aunt Robin shares her frustration with the police department and what she hopes will happen in the future.
What frustrates me so much too is the fact that the initial homicide detective, because Armani's case changed hands 3 different times. The initial homicide detective, and then in 2019, I requested that initial homicide detective be removed from Armani's case. And the reason that I requested that he be removed from Armani's case, because his bias and his predetermined theory about Armani being a Black gay male living in a low-income area, raised by just his mother, negatively impacted Armani's case. from the outset, because 17 days of him actually being in charge of Armani's case, he just decided that Armani died in that vacant residential lot due to drugs. These bones have never been tested, but you've had the case 17 days. And it took 3 months for the medical examiner's office to come back with the results to positively and legally identify Armani's remains as a match with his mom's biological DNA. So if it took them 3 months to identify the skeletal remains, how are you going to say this matter-of-factly in 17 days without any forensic evidence? My hopes are that the case evidence collected from the crime scene is tested, because case evidence doesn't lie. And that was my issue with DPD. They fought against me for 8 years, them not wanting to pay for forensic testing involving Armani's case evidence. February the 2nd, 5 days before the third annual San Antonio Missing Persons event, I got a phone call from Texas Attorney General's cold case unit telling me that DPD had handed over Armani's unsolved murder investigation to Texas Attorney General's cold case unit. And that was the best news that I've gotten in the past 8 years. Because, all the meetings and all the visits that I made to Dallas Police Headquarters, my fight with them was the fact that they refused to pay for forensic testing regarding this case evidence that can absolutely change Armani's current cause and manner of death from undetermined to homicide. Test the case evidence, and then we go from there. As a whole, didn't feel the need to spend taxpayer dollars to pay for forensic testing involving Armani's unsolved murder. And I told myself, okay, well, if Armani's mother and I are not taxpayers, then who are we? So You're telling his mother that although she paid taxes, you don't feel the need to spend her tax dollars, nor my tax dollar, to help pay for forensic testing.
Although Armani's family will not give up fighting for justice, they continue to seek the public assistance. If you or someone you know has information about Armani Dante Morgan, what happened to him, or anyone that could be associated with his disappearance and death, you can contact the Texas Attorney General's Cold Case Office at 512-463-2100. Or you can report anonymously online at any time any tips related to his case at www.p3tips.com. We have shared a list of show references and resources with further information on Armani's case, where you, the listener, and fellow true crime enthusiasts can come together to spread the word. Armani Morgan would be 36 years old today. He would have had continued to share his love of dance and fashion with the world, and he would have continued to bring that joy to his family and friends. We take this opportunity to honor his memory and push for answers in his case. Thank you for listening to our story today. And remember, True-10 is brought to you by you, our listeners and supporters. You can follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and join us on Facebook. And remember, stay safe, San Antonio.